Hey guys, it's Trent, and I wanted to answer a question a little bit more in depth that I've been asked recently, because the war between concept art and illustration rages on. It rages on and it never dies. Rafask94 says, about concept art, why do some companies want to see super finished, hyper polished illustrations? Isn't the point of concept art to transmit an idea? I see a lot of styles like the Metal Gear Solid 5 being simple with lines and flats. But I look at something like League of Legends, and the majority, for example, are ultra-polished stuff. So why is that? I think this is a question that I get asked a lot. I've struggled with a lot. And it really boils down to who you're selling your art and your designs and your abilities to. So, for instance, let's take a look at some illustrations that I had done. Well, these are some concepts and illustrations that I had done for Summoner's Rift on League of Legends. Now, as you can see here, I had done these kind of high-level painted type of illustrations here, this one and this one. And then after they were approved, I then moved on to do some breakdowns of those things. Now, in some cases, they might hire somebody like James Peck, for instance, who is really good at photo manipulation, photo bashing, and a very high-leveled high concept painter and illustrator. And they might hire somebody like that or need somebody like that to sell the concept or sell the idea of something to the non-artists on the team. Now, Riot Games is a very flat structure, so everybody from the IT specialist or a game tester can throw in his comments or suggestions or feedback to the artist. There hasn't traditionally been, it may have changed now, but there wasn't really like a top-down sort of this guy decides what happens next kind of a thing, or this is the concept that gets approved. Many times you're sitting in a room full of 20 people who all have their own opinion on what direction something should go. And if those people aren't artists, they just want to, they measure the coolness factor of something based on how cool the render is. And so those are the people that sometimes you have to cater to. And when it comes down, however, to building the models, something like this high-level painted thing isn't as useful. I want to go through a few examples to show you what I mean. So let's talk about League of Legends a little bit more on their skins team, for instance. And I'm not picking on anybody here, by the way. I'm not saying any one way is right or wrong. I don't want to get into that. What I'm saying is that I've had to learn to be both as much as I possibly can. So with League of Legends, many times when they're doing things like skins, they want to see how their concept is going to look in-game. So they insist, because they have a lot of people on their skins team that aren't not artists, but they're weighing in on how cool does this character look. They may be a game designer, they may be somebody who just doesn't necessarily draw. And another thing I wanted to point out is when you're at the top, when you're somebody like Riot Games or Blizzard Entertainment, they want somebody who can do great designs at camera angle. And I want to show you some examples of that in a second as well. What I mean by that is they want to see people who can do really high level of rendering and obviously display high levels of rendering and material and lighting painting ability, but they also want that same person to be able to make those shots work in a way that they can imagine it directly translating into the game. So you'll see things like here where this person obviously knows the score. They know how to do a design for League of Legends, because you've got your character that kind of looks like he's a little bit top-down, but he's not quite as top-down as he would be in the game shot. You can see how he even manipulated it a little bit here to make it work. And then you see your breakdowns. This is the information that the modeler is going to be looking at way more than he's looking at this stuff. So it really helps to understand the modeling pipeline. If you do a little bit of modeling yourself, you're going to make yourself a more valuable concept artist. Now I want to pull up something else. I want to pull up some splash art here. Now this is an example of an illustration, and this is not concept art. So if you're looking at imagery like this, now the average person doesn't care. They don't give a damn about what the difference is. They just see cool art and they go, oh, cool concept art. They don't really get that this is not something that a modeler should or could even build a model from. Now, if you're a very independent modeler and you like to problem solve, sure, yeah. But most modelers that I've ever worked with insist on something that has a little bit more of an orthographic. They want to see the front details. They want to see side view. They want to see cutaways. If that character has pouches or details on their outfit. This is a dynamic character shot with very realistic lighting, and a piece like this takes about 3 weeks. Now, if your job is to be a concept artist, you're expected to do iterations every single day. I mean, you've got to fill entire sheets full of concept art, and with varying ideas and alternates and explorations and inspiring concepts, you know, and that means you need to be able to do highly rendered stuff at a very quick rate. Something like this is polished. Something like this is pristine. It's like down to the details. You could look at the pixels and they look polished. If you spend 2 weeks doing one concept, you're going to get fired, brother. I don't care where you're working. I don't care how good you are. I mean, and that's if you're a concept artist. If you're an illustrator, I think it's expected. If you know anything about game development, you're going to know better. And if I'm applying to a potential client, or if I'm applying for a potential job, and I send them a bunch of concept art and they say, no, make it look more like these illustrations, I'm out. I'm out before we even begin, because that tells me that they're probably not going to know what to even do with what I'm giving them. They're not going to value it. And that's okay. I'm not going to cuss them out. I'm not going to say they're wrong. I'm not going to tell them, oh, you got to change the way, you're not doing it right. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say, well, okay, good luck. And if I know an illustrator, I'll recommend them to you. And I have passed on jobs because they didn't know the difference between concept art and illustration. But I won't pick on who that was. Usually they're smaller studios without a lot of experience. Let's pull up some pieces by my old friend Paul Kwan, also known as Zeronis. This guy does a little bit of both. I mean, this guy, the reason why he's rocking it over there, he's designed a huge number of character designs for League of Legends, is because he does a little bit of both. He'll take it to a high level of polish. So anyone who's a non-artist can look at this design and they can go, oh my God, that's so cool. I want that. You know, but he's also got the back view. He's got little breakdowns, you know. This was one of his oldest pieces. He would hate that I even brought this one up. We pull up one of his fancier female characters. He loves to draw women, you can tell. So you can see again where he's done the same thing. He's got a shot it's not an imposing shot where the character is super dynamic, or like where you can't see the details. A modeler can look at these. He does have the simplified back view. You can tell here where it gets a little bit more line art and sketchy because you don't need a high level of polish for that. But over here on the front view, the marketing team, the guys who are higher ups, who might not be artists themselves, they want to see a badass render that makes them go, yeah, that's like the best, the coolest drawing I've ever seen. And they can't tell the difference between a good drawing and a good character design. And I'm not saying that they're like they don't know any better or anything like that. I'm just saying when you show your drawing to somebody who's a non-artist and they go, oh, that's a freaking awesome character design, 9 times out of 10 it's because they like the rendering on it, or they like the cool lighting on it, or they're looking at your masterful artistic craft, your ability to render very well, and that's going to kind of skew their view of whether or not they like the piece. And that's why photo bashing has really kind of taken over, because it's like, oh, it looks so real. I want to show you some other examples. So let's dig into, these are this is specifically Yoji Shinkawa's designs. And I want to comment about this. I want you to understand before I say anything that Yoji Shinkawa is one of my favorite designers and also one of my favorite artists. But I separate those things. And I also recognize that if he were to apply for a job with these designs, he would not get the job. We accept that this is a good design because Yoji Shinkawa he's a proven talent. That this is his raw concept art breakdowns, like you're seeing the line art here of how parts fit together, you know. This, by the way, is a CG render that was done after the fact for an art book, so don't be skewed by that. What I'm speaking of specifically is what we're looking at over here, these character shots. This is the information that the modelers need to build the designs, and you need to be able to do that as well as your awesome, cool painted images. And I want to pull up some of those from Yoji Shinkawa as well so that you can understand what I'm speaking of. So he does these very striking kind of high contrast images, and if you follow my work, it's very obvious that I've been inspired by this guy from time to time. But one of the things that really stands out is that these images just pop. Non-artists can look at this and go, oh my God, that's so cool and so interesting, because there's all the negative space, very graphical, high contrast type of imagery. But these, by all accounts, in terms of video game art, are useless beyond the selling of an idea. Or it's not a breakdown. It's more of just a high level view of what that character is, or what the feel of the game is. Let's dig into a couple more here. This is Vamp from Metal Gear Solid 4. Again, you can see Yoji Shinkawa's very scribbled, sort of, here's a breakdown of how that pant leg works. This is probably the closest thing to concept art that Yoji Shinkawa will do. And to be straightforward with you, if he did not put his name on his artwork, and he applied for a job on Call of Duty or any other modern military sci-fi kind of a game, he would probably not get the job, and he would be very frustrated because he would have to learn to render photorealistically. And yet that would be such a shame, and I feel like it is a shame that so many really talented artists never really get a chance. So many talented game designers or concept art designers never really get a chance because of their lack of rendering ability. In environments where, quite honestly, sometimes sometimes art directors, I think, need to separate the idea from the concept. I think it's a shame that sometimes really good concept designers don't really get a chance at some AAA studios to really develop their skills, and sometimes you can become disheartened. Yoji Shinkawa may very well have quit, and good God, this sounds like I'm bashing him, but it's not. I'm simply saying that he's been around so long that we just trust that he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, these designs would not sell his portfolio, and if you have designs that look like this in your portfolio, you can't get away with what Yoji Shinkawa can get away with. When you become famous like that, you can get away with a lot. But these are some of his more conceptual design type of breakdowns. I wish I had a clearer image of this one specifically, because I thought it was so valuable that he's got these mechanical breakdowns, and his style tends to lend itself well to mechanical design. But even though he does a lot with brushes, I think that's part of the appeal of it. So I had done some of my own Metal Gear designs. When Kojima Productions had a studio in Los Angeles, I had applied for a character design or a concept art role at that studio. As a side note, it's good that I didn't get that job, because I ended up going to work on League of Legends and redesigning Summoner's Rift. And I was actually shot down by the Los Angeles branch of Kojima Productions. And one of the reasons is because they're stupid. They don't know that... no, I'm just kidding. That's not it. But I do kind of feel like I had decent designs, but they were looking for somebody who did photorealistic illustration. And to me, that was a clear indicator that I would not be a good fit, because I don't agree with that philosophy. I believe that concept artists can have good designs underneath their rendering ability. And as long as it translates well into 3D, you can work with that. I think that there were some good designs in here. Some of them were a little too sci-fi, a little too bold, but on occasion, Metal Gear does go that direction. Like, it's a damn shame that this one, the fire-resistant armor, did not go into the game. But, this was also me really trying to match the proportions of the types of characters. If you watch my channel, you know that I don't tend to do this type of work very much, these types of proportions on things very much. So it was a challenge for me, but I wanted to really show that I could do realistic proportion concept art for a military sci-fi action or stealth game. You be the judge, though. I don't know. So yeah, when we're doing skins for League of Legends, though, I already know that particular client, they really like to see the character at the in-game angle, and so we rendered it to try to match the kind of levels of detail that they put into their characters. I didn't want them to have to imagine very much. I wanted to give them something that looked like it would look in game, and they decided to go with this Shadow Isles Wukong. And so that was one of the designs that I did back in the day with, I think I was working with Marcus a little bit on that one. But in the early stage concepts, I was doing stuff that was more like this because I knew we have to sell this idea to a lot of people who don't necessarily, they can't imagine how the character will look at the game camera. So the advice that I would give to you is to learn the process of whoever it is that you're applying to. Learn their pipelines, man. Learn the way that their team thinks. Watch interviews with those particular developers. If you want to be on the skins team at Riot Games, you need to learn that, yeah, they're going to expect both. They're going to expect somebody who can draw these cool, overly detailed kind of material rendered images to sell the concept, and then they're going to want this little in-game shot as well that shows them, oh, that's how this design is going to look in-game. You'll have to do both of those before you present it to the team the next day. And yes, you'd probably get about a day to do something like this. Speed is a factor, depending on the studio. You also have to accept that we did about 30 of these before they landed on this design. So Riot Games goes through a lot of iteration. They may work a little bit more efficiently now, but back then it would sometimes take a month to do one final design for a skin. Blizzard is a little bit different. They have a little bit more of a top-down structure, and sometimes it depends on the art director. That particular person might say, hey, no, we need you to paint or draw in exactly the style that we want, or that the game is based on, or based in. And usually there is some kind of a style guide. We didn't have a style guide on Diablo, and I think that caused a lot of frustrations towards the end. Speaking specifically of Diablo 3, that's the only one I worked on. But yes, let's dig into some Diablo 3 process. Diablo 3 is all, for me anyway, with a lot of the armor designs that I did, and I did about 70 to 75% of the armor concept designs for Diablo 3. I was painting over geometry, so they were all what they call orthographic cutaways. And the reason to do this is because the modelers would quite literally just trace around this in 3D. So I would kind of paint over that geometry and then extrapolate, design the theme for each of the armor sets, and then they would project my painted texture onto the geometry and use that as a starting point for their own painted texture. And those guys, they did a lot of work, of course, bringing these to life, but I did everything that I could to make that process easier. And that's what being a concept artist in games is really about. If you show in your portfolio that you understand the pipeline, if you show in your portfolio that you're going to make every modeler on that team love you because you're going to make their lives easier, you're going to make them look like rock stars to their bosses, then they're going to want to hire you onto that team. And that's true of teams that understand real game development pipelines. You might get, why the dissension? Why do people disagree on this? Why do people say, well, that's not real concept or whatever, because they've got a vested interest. Some of these guys went to art school and they were taught by people who didn't know game development pipeline. They only knew how to render really well and trace the masters or study the masters. So they have a vested interest in protecting that philosophy. But for me, I spent 15 years doing this, so I know a few things about it. I've shipped a lot of games, man. I know that pipeline. I know it backwards and forwards. Why am I talking about it now? Because every single day my studio gets submissions, portfolios from people who have no idea what concept art is, what the pipeline is all about, and how a concept artist even fits into that role. Make yourself valuable. Make yourself useful. Make yourself somebody that will make your potential employer money, and you will find yourself with an infinite amount of jobs, all kinds of opportunities, and just there's so many companies and studios that are desperate to find artists who know what they're doing, and they're so tired. Their HR guys call me and they're so tired of getting concept art portfolios from people who have no idea, because everything that you see on YouTube about concept art is from a lot of people who have no idea how to do it. Check the work history of the people that you're listening to and allowing to influence you, or before you go and buy that mentorship program or that huge collection of tutorials from that guy. Check to make sure that he's a guy that stuck it out at that job, and that he's actually capable of doing the job for a lengthy period of time that he's selling you on the fact that he can do. And the other thing that I'd recommend to you is to not look at experience as something that's like a checkbox on your resume or portfolio. I get a lot of questions coming in from people saying, how do I get experience and why do they care so much about experience? They want experience, concept artists, because they don't want somebody who's going to be off doing their own thing and not serving their team. They don't want to be paying you to train you to unlearn everything you learned from the internet and ArtStation and DeviantArt. They want people who have experience because they want to know that you know what you're doing and that you've done it and you've shipped titles from start to finish, not just halfway because things got hard and then you split. Experience isn't something that's a checkbox on your to-do list. Experience is something that means that you learned the craft. It's not a checkbox. It's not a little thing that's in your way. It's a thing that you need to do because it's going to make you better at the job itself. Nobody owes you a job. Nobody owes you a career. Make yourself valuable to them, and you will find that studios will fight over you. All right, calm down. Cool off. I hope that answered the question. Rafasco94. Yeah, there is a big difference in illustration and concept art. And I hope that this sheds a little bit of light on it. And, you know, I'm going to have a lot of people. I know that there are some people who are going to strongly disagree with my comments here, and that's okay. You know, if you found a place that's comfortable for you, where your illustration is valued as if it's concept art, man, I'm not going to tell you you don't deserve it. Heck no, man. If you make a good living doing art and designs for games or whatever it is that you love to do, more power to you. I won't ever tell anybody that my set rules are always true. I'm just telling you some of the experiences that I've had working with some of the studios that I've worked with and the differences that I've found. Some of my own standards, I suppose. And that's kind of really, my opinion is really the only one that matters here on my YouTube channel. If you disagree, you're welcome to it. If you have questions, every Friday I do answer questions on my Trent's Comment Corner. And so if you have questions, go ahead and leave those in the comments below the video. Of course, if you like my art style and you're looking at this and you're thinking, man, I just really want to be able to draw the way that Trent draws, well, I make all that available in my box sets of tutorials, which I sell over on Gumroad. I also make my brushes available, so you can really just kind of replace me. You can absorb all of my knowledge and information that I've accumulated over the years and use that for your own evil deeds. And of course, if you just like the freebies, you can go ahead and subscribe. That's cool too. And I do about 2 or 3 videos a week. It's always good times. It's always good vibes. And until next time, dudes, I'll catch y'all mañana, man. Ciao, baby. Yeah.